Can go without her pen, and
Taking
welcome.
this class much too seriously.
Yeah, we're good. Sorry for the slow start here, but we are now online. We are all here. Welcome back, Mary. You missed part one of this lesson last week, but that's okay. We're catching up on this week. That's okay. I'm going to keep drinking my latte because it's keeping me moving. We do have all the lights on in here, don't we? Oh, I guess. Oh, no, I didn't get those. Can you hit those, Pastor? Can you hit those lights? There we go. I knew I wasn't having a stroke. It doesn't help the picture any, I don't think. I just kind of felt like something was a little dark and a little dim. I'm like, okay, I forgot.
That's probably me.
I forgot that. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm not going to point any fingers.
Did you get the sheet?
He had the sheet last week.
I had it last week.
Yeah.
I memorized it.
He's got it
so
down.
this is a continuation.
This is a continuation. I had threatened in lesson 2 that lesson 3 looked awfully long and that I thought it would possibly take a couple of weeks. And sure enough, we hit a good spot. So, as we get started here, if you have not actually read my shirt, my birthday gift from my brother finally arrived.
That's great.
Nacho Average Deacon. I'm kind of feeling a little whimsical today, so I decided to wear it. God only knows where he got it, but it came in an Amazon box, so life is good.
David got it?
No, my brother and his family sent it to me. Yeah, for my birthday a few weeks ago, and they forgot me, and it was okay, but he suddenly realized nobody had sent anything, so suddenly I wind up with some T-shirts here. So I think I may quit dressing up on Thursdays and just go with my loose and whatever. Especially in the winter, I'm definitely in T-shirts and a pullover. And if we're gonna,
Dressed up, but you don't have
You are?
if we're gonna keep this at nursing home levels in here, whew,
Yeah, spilled
I'm
down
gonna
in front of
need
me
the
at lunch,
T-shirt.
Of course, so
Of course.
don't have that.
Something for later.
It was clean, but
All right, we're going to be serious. So for any of you watching at home, we've got our act together now. We are picking up from Lesson 3 last week. Lesson 3 was really dealing with the next generation after Abraham, sort of Abraham's problems, picking up with Jacob and Esau, going through the blessings of Jacob. We talked about the fact that God and his promises were working through the second child, not the first child, which is what we as a people would sort of expect. I mean, when I say we as a people, just in terms of our sense of fairness, rightness, the way the world is ordered, the firstborn is the one who does, and the firstborn is the one, and God is like, no, we're not doing this according to your methods of justice and fairness and rightness. This is God's way of building. Jacob sent off to marry among the faithful people, Abraham's ancestors. Esau, as we pointed out, decided to select wives that would annoy his parents. Always has to be one somewhere. Always has to happen. We ended with this dream as Jacob was on his way to Laban, where he's going to actually meet his wives. We won't
this is
even.
the dream of we are climbing.
Jacob's ladder will be later. That's a second dream. This is
I
the
just
first
got
dream.
down off the ladder, sorry.
Okay. So it's not
This is the first dream. This
Okay.
is the first dream he has. But let's open up with a word of prayer, and then I will get into this. Father, thank you. We're starting to approach that season. We're getting towards the end of the church year, getting ready to enter Advent, and we look forward to the coming of the Messiah. And so appropriately, here we are studying in the Old Testament the stories of your people and the fact that they are looking forward to a Messiah, even though they sometimes seem to forget it. I ask that you bless us as we get into the scripture today. I ask that you your Spirit give us wisdom, give us guidance as we read through these stories in Genesis. These things we ask today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, so the dream he had was the first one. On his way, Jacob was going. It says, and he dreamed. This is where we were joking last week about the fact he pulled out a stone to lay his head on, because, yeah, that's what you do when you're sitting out there. You get comfortable, you pull up a stone, you go to sleep. It says, and he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up. Well, maybe, yeah, I guess there was the ladder. Okay. Yeah. The wrestling occurred in the second part. That wasn't a dream. That's what I'm thinking. My brain is doing the wishy-washy thing because we had the second part of this story last Sunday where we spent all that time in Sunday school talking about Jacob wrestling with God. We'll touch on that through here. This is prior to that. This is he's on his way. Dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And that's the part we always remember. That's the part we're always talking about. Wow, there was this ladder, and angels were going up and down. That's not the important part of the story. It says, and behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread across to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So this, in part, is where I think things start to go a little wrong for
So
them.
he's not named Israel until the next.
Until a little bit.
Wrestles with God.
Yes, correct. So here he promises that the land he's laying on is a land he's going to receive. We're going to get into this next week, I think. We're going to wrap up Genesis today. We're going to start with Exodus. But I have a theory, sort of a theory. This idea of the promised land, in a way, is a type of the Messiah in the sense of it represents the type of rest the people are going to receive. You're going to receive the new Jerusalem, the heaven, the earth, the rest in the time to come in the Messiah. They somehow eventually twist it to, hey, we're getting this land, and this land is going to be the center of everything for us. And they somehow forget about the earlier promise about the one who's going to defeat Satan. It almost takes up a bigger place than what it really is. And where it should be pointing back to the Messiah, it becomes all and everything for them. Spoilers for next week. We're going to talk about that when it comes to Exodus.
I can see how people would think that way, though. You're going to get all this land, and they don't understand.
Absolutely.
What the Messiah is.
Absolutely. But, he doesn't promise them salvation in the land. He doesn't promise them that the land is going to take care of them. And he even tells them, behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. Meaning,
He already tells them that
this isn't going to go.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, this isn't going to go well. So, I'm digging deeply into what I'm already thinking for next week as I work through the Exodus story. But for some reason, very understandable reason perhaps, that idea of this promised land almost surpassed the idea of a Messiah, one who would come to save them. And it's going to get twisted by the time you get up to the judges, because they're going to say, we need a king.
earthly king.
Yeah, we need a king. So you can sort of see how this story twists. God did promise them a land. He did promise them that this place was here. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying where it should have been a type to point them towards them. You're giving us this land. Now what about the one you've promised? How will that work? Instead they said, we want a king because we're a nation. Anyway, That'll be next week, spoiler. So for everybody else who's not here, it's going to sound brand new. You guys
We'll be
will
on.
sound extra smart.
No, I won't remember.
Yeah, well, we'll pass over it. It's fine. But I thought that was interesting because you have this here. And it started back with Abraham when Sarah died and he went and bought the cave to bury Sarah in. That was in Canaan, in the land that God was going to give him. And he purchased that land. This is my spot here. So, I mean, really, it sort of starts back there. But anyway, sidetrack. Don't want to give away too much of next week's start to the lesson with this. Jacob has the dream. He is encouraged, and he moves on to the relative, Laban, the son of Nahor. And he goes and he sees Rachel. And just like the old Looney Tunes cartoons, his heart just goes pitter-pat, and I can't live without her, and this is going to be great, and I need to marry her. So he makes a deal with Laban. And he tells him, if you work for me for 7 years, you can marry my daughter.
He didn't say which one.
So this is one of the more interesting parts of these stories. Once again, everybody assumes that all the people that are in here are good actors and faithful actors, and Laban is just a bastard from the beginning to the end. He's like, okay, you're going to come work for me. And the thing we're told is that while Jacob was working for him, everything Jacob did prospered. You know, more crops, more cattle, they were successful. He was actually building his own fortune among Laban while he was working for him, and Laban did well. But you know, the time comes, he works his 7 years, he says, I'm ready to marry Rachel for whatever reason. You know, you have to picture this kind of wedding where the bride is totally covered and goes through the process, boom, you're married, and then he finds out it's the wrong sister. And
That's so weird.
so you have to pull it out of any modern conception of marriages are true love and everybody does what they want to do, when in fact marriages were contracts and they were agreements, and doesn't mean that there wasn't some element of love involved in them. Obviously, you know, Jacob had some feelings for Rachel. So, I mean, there is that element, but that was not the primary. What I like to think about is a more medieval approach to these things. You know, if you think of the medieval times with the kings, what was the point of marriage? The point was to produce an heir. You know, so they weren't necessarily marrying for love. They were marrying to make sure that the heir came.
Or to bond nations.
Or to bond nations, yeah. There were always ulterior motives. And the ones they were married to were not always the ones that they were, quote unquote, in love with. So you just kind of got to get all of that out of your head as you read these stories. So, good, because we're moving on. Now, once again, he serves them for 7 more years, gets to marry Rachel. Then we find out that between the 2 wives, this seems to be a common problem. Leah bears all of these children for Jacob. And Rachel is just unable.
Rachel's unbearable.
Yeah.
she is unbearable. And nothing comes until the very end. And it says, and finally, then God remembered Rachel. Does it mean God forgot her? No, it's just a way of speaking that God carried through And God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, May the Lord add to me another son. So that is the announcement of the birth of Joseph.
Did they have any more?
Um,
Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
I was going to say, and then it took
He was one of
2,000,
the
took
younger ones.
took 4,000 years until Andrew Lloyd Webber decided it was time to create a musical based on his life.
But it's amazing here because she gave him her maid, and then Leah gave him her maid later, and oh my goodness.
He was a busy man. He was a very, very busy man.
Joseph's brothers were from several different mothers.
Oh yeah, yeah. They were not all one family. So that in and of they weren't all from the same mother. So that within itself creates conflict, creates tension, creates jockeying for power.
So he was the only one from Rachel. And everybody was jealous of him.
Yeah. Well, and he'll get there. He's going to have his dreams.
Okay, I'll slow down.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Well, it says here, let's see.
Part of the reason we're doing this is to carry the story and follow the story along, because then it looks in the long term, it starts to make sense. Nobody comes out of this thing smelling like roses, and yet this is how God chose to work his plan through all these imperfect people. Jacob prospers. He does well. Asks Laban to go back, asks about taking his part of the fortune. Laban attempts to cheat him, and God won't let that happen.
Good.
God continues everything Laban tries to do.
Says you get all the sheep with the spots or something.
Yep. And then they change it, and he's like, nope, and somehow they all wind up in Jacob's favor. Now, that doesn't mean that Jacob was a great guy who deserved everything he got. It meant God was looking out for him, and God wanted him to prosper while he was there. God prospered him. And so, as they said, now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. So Jacob knows the sons are starting to get upset. And it's time to go.
Oh, another dream.
Well,
We don't go into that.
not yet.
Okay.
He decides to run. This is the best part. Decides it's time to go. Packs up the camels. Packs up everything. Gets Leah and Rachel. And decides it's time to go. And you have to think about this, because once again, we sort of lose vision because we're picturing a nice mansion somewhere. Somebody's going to have to back up the truck. Somebody's going to have to put all the goods in the truck, when in fact these are a very nomadic people. They've got their animals. They've got their tents. They've got all of their stuff. So they're living near each other. They're living around each other. They find a nice field where they can care for the animals. They may not all be right in the same spot. So he decides, hey, it's time to pick up stakes and head back home. And he's not going to talk to Laban. He's going to run like heck to get out of there. So they pack everything up, and it tells us that Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel saddle and sat on them.
You're kidding.
So once again, if you ever have discussions with people and they're like, well, Israel was not monotheistic, they worshipped other gods and they had other things with them, and they were not a perfect people, you got to sit there and look at them and said, whoever told you they were? Whoever said?
Nothing was perfect in the Old Testament.
No.
Or the New.
No, if you're looking to the Old Testament for your heroes, you got a problem. There are aspects of them you can admire, but if you look at it and say, I want to live my life that way, oof, you got some problems. But, Laban comes after them. He's throwing a fit. Looks like they're going to fight. He's like, look, they've stolen my stuff. None of it's ever found. Jacob, semi-rightly, gets very upset and pitches a fit, and why are you doing this to me? And Laban attempts to justify himself, but when he finds nothing, it's like, okay. So he finally, it says, they came together in peace. Early in the morning, Laban arose, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. So this was God looking out for Jacob and saying, okay, you're going to get out of this bad situation. You're going to have peace, and you're going to go on your way. Now, where's he going?
Back to
Back,
the promised land.
back to his home. And who's at home waiting for him?
Oh, his brother.
Who last he had seen of his brother, he was running away as fast as he could because his brother was mad.
Yeah.
But Esau is heading home. So he's praying to God, deliver me, take care of me. And this is where we picked up on Sunday for all the people that were here listening to Pastor's sermon about Jacob wrestling with God. And the Sunday school class, we talked about it. That's where this story pops in, because Jacob split the camp, put all his people and everybody else out there, and then he himself was alone. And the idea being, you sort of don't know which. Either one, if something happened to him, they could make a run for it, or maybe Esau would just take it out on his brother and leave everybody else alone. Then you get to the point that he once again goes to sleep, and suddenly he finds himself wrestling with this guy. That part is not an unusual, like, it seems weird, you sort of ask yourself, but once again, people traveled in packs. When you're in the wilderness, you don't know who's out there. Now, why they would wrestle you and not just kill you, I don't know, but you're not traveling alone. You don't know who's out there. You don't know who's fighting with you. So the fact that he's attacked out in the wilderness is not a shocker. That's not the shocking part of the story. But then at some point, he comes to realize this is not just an ordinary wrestling. Like, something about it is telling him this is just not, and I think the best you can possibly say is it's a revelation from God. Somehow God places into his head, you're not just fighting, take your pick, an assassin, a robber, or whatever. That's not what this is. You are fighting with me. Somehow he realizes it. And as we were talking about, God puts Jacob's hip out of joint. It says he touches him. It's so funny. It's like he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled. It's kind of like he just said, "Bop," and put his hip out. But he refused to let go of him. If you ever had any fights with brothers or sisters, and you think you're winning until they just grab a hold of a leg or an arm or something, and they just refuse to let go. I mean, that's what Jacob's doing here. And he's holding on for dear life because he has nothing else to trust in than what he is realizing is God here. He's asking for this blessing. He's asking for this blessing. He wants this blessing. And we had a big discussion Sunday, why is that? Well, it's very hard to do too much of a psychological profile on Jacob. We have a very limited story of who he was. Perhaps he was remembering the fact that he stole the other blessing, and that if God blesses him here, this will truly be something for him to carry forward. Maybe he's just scared, and he needs to know he's going to get through this encounter with Esau okay. You kind of just don't know. But this is where Jacob is renamed Israel. This is the point that he's told that you will be, what does he say? Your name is known Jacob and Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Fighting, striving, going Israel. Great. So he gets through it. Now, what do you see here? You also see that the strength of Jacob no longer stands. He's going to go meet his brother, and he's got a sore hip. He has to trust in God and his blessing now. There's going to be no running. There's going to be no fighting. There's going to be you can't. Mm-hmm. Your hip's out of joint. You got to
rely on God.
You have to rely on God. I think that may have been part of this deal. Is God is like, stop thinking this is your power that's doing it.
He tried to convince Israel, the people, over and over and over again. They kept going off track.
Absolutely. So, comes back, meets up with Esau, and for whatever reason Esau has had, I don't know if I'd call it a change of heart, maybe a change of heart in that he doesn't want to kill him anymore, but he basically, it says he ran to meet him, embraced him, fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. For whatever reason, Esau's heart was changed to accept Jacob.
Now, he's still called Jacob, even though he was said he would be called Israel.
Well,
his brother never knew.
Yeah, I mean, I call my brother Buffalo Butt. Nobody else calls him that, but I've called him that his whole life. Names are names. I mean, he's going to be called Israel later, and it's going to be the founding of Israel. Remember, all these sons of his are the heads of the 12 tribes, but, we all have different names to different people, and to Esau, he's still Jacob, the schemer, the one who stole. So Jacob points out that God has blessed him. He's got these children. He's got his wives. Esau sees that, and they agree Esau to go on ahead. Once again, this all sounds really weird, except you got to remember they were very nomadic people. So he's like, I'll go on ahead with my folks where we're settled. You come in and settle in the land. Peaceful neighbors. But remember, who has Esau been marrying?
Outside his
way outside the family, tribe, acceptable people. So, I mean, in a way, they're like, even though they are brothers, it's almost becoming like distant cousins in a way. It's like, okay. And now what we have going on, you have the defiling of Dinah, the rape of Dinah, and Jacob's sons decide to go to war with the Canaanites in the land over that, to avenge that act. And Jacob's not happy. Mm-hmm. Jacob's not happy, even though probably it sounds just. He's not arguing the justness of it. He's arguing, we're not that big, and here you are starting fights. Did I have anything else I wanted to say there? You being circumcised. Yeah. That was I guess either the most amusing part or the most horrible part of is how they got vengeance upon those sons of their enemies. Basically, the sons of Jacob went to them and said, "Hey, we want to marry your daughters." "Okay, yes, you've got our sister now. We want to marry your daughters. The problem is we really can't marry them in front of our God unless your people are circumcised." And for whatever reason, they all said, "Yeah, that's okay. We can do that. And then we'll be a strong people." So they went and got circumcised, and it said the next day while they were all recovering, the sons of Jacob went in there and just slaughtered them.
Oh,
Because who's going to fight? They can't get
that's
up.
horrible.
And that's why Jacob is upset. And it says all their wealth, all their little ones, all their wives, all that was in their houses, they captured and plundered. So there's another question is, here they've taken then everything from all these men that they've killed, they're Canaanites. And they've taken them now into Israel. Not yet called Israel, but into Jacob's house. Did God command that? No. I mean, so I think we have another example of man attempting his justice in the situation.
At least they're all circumcised.
At least they're all circumcised now.
Yeah. Jeez.
So now it says that Jacob goes back to Bethel to pray, to talk to God. And here God reiterated the promise he makes to Jacob. He reiterates the name change. Your name is Jacob, no longer shall your name be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. It says that he went ahead of him, and the peoples in the areas left. They basically were getting the land that they were promised. So Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he had spoken to a pillar of stone, poured out a drink offering on it, poured oil on it. So Jacob called the name of the place where God had spoken with him Bethel. So if you ever wonder why you see all the churches called Bethel, that's why. They're remembering this place where God spoke. While they were journeying, Rachel went into labor. She had hard labor. Another son was given, then she died. And that was Benjamin. And we all remember Benjamin and his...
Fast for Benjamin. Come to Israel.
Yep.
Come to Egypt.
So now there's this little note in here. Well, Israel lived in that land. They had moved. So now here is where Jacob is consistently called Israel. It said, so after Rachel died, Jacob set up a pillar over her tomb. It says, while Israel lived in that land, Reuben, who is Reuben?
The oldest.
The oldest son, went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard of it.
Where are you?
35:22.
That's not good.
That's a sentence that you just sort of file away in your back pocket.
Yeah.
It's just this
That
one
must have
sentence.
just been a common thing that happened back then.
Maybe
I don't know.
maybe a common thing that happens now. I mean, I don't think human
the way
nature.
they say it, I mean, it's like, that's weird.
Just file it away.
Yeah,
Once again,
okay.
Reuben, and Reuben's the firstborn son of Israel. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's servant, Dan, Naphtali. Sons of Zilpah, Leah's servant, Gad, and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan Aram. So what you should be hearing now is what will eventually be the 12 tribes. These are these family names. Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre or Kiriath Arabah, where Abraham and Isaac had sojourned. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. Dude's doing okay. When Isaac breathed his last and he died and was gathered to his people, old and full of days, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So now Isaac is dead. Esau and Jacob are the patriarchs, the heads of the families. And we have a little talk about Esau's descendants, but you wind up with this little sentence here, starting in verse 6. Then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the members of his household, his livestock, all his beasts, and all his property that he had acquired in the land of Canaan. He went into a land away from his brother Jacob, for their possessions were too great for them to dwell together. The land of their sojournings could not support them because of their livestock, so Esau settled in the hill country of Seir. So it says, and then in parentheses, Esau is Edom. So Edom, we'll wind up hearing a lot about these places later on, especially in Exodus as they're wandering the wilderness. But God saw fit to move Esau out of the land. Jacob now has possession. We have lots of chiefs and kings and people there. And then in chapter 37, we now start. Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob, and they go through all of them. And then we start talking about dreams. And Joseph now has dreams. The young son, not the youngest, but the young son. And he's having dreams. And what do these dreams, what do they indicate?
That he likes to offend his family members.
He loves to annoy them.
Well, they all mean something.
Well, we have the dreams about like the various sheaves all sort of bowing over towards the one in the center. And
surprising how his brothers took that.
yeah, I mean, and he basically went to his father and said, hey, I see this thing coming and it looks like, eventually everybody's going to bow down to me. You don't know if he was naive or dumb.
Really didn't like his brothers.
Or really didn't like them and thought maybe he had a protected status. It's like so hard to say. There's so many routes you can take it. But, here he is telling them that I'm the man. Well, his brothers...
And he was already unliked, and then he goes and says that.
Yeah, his brothers did not take it well. So they come up with the plan, sell him to traders who are coming through, cover the coat. He wears this coat. They call it the coat of many colors, patchwork quilt coat. I mean, it's hard to say what exactly it was, but it was something that stood out.
It was an
That the-
amazing Technicolor dream.
Amazing Technicolor dream coat. Yeah, that's how we always picture it. But they covered it in blood. At this point, you see the start of these messianic echoes. Once again, you ask yourself, how is Jesus revealed in the life of Joseph? So you have the messianic echoes, unjust death, thrown in a pit. That could be like being in the tomb, being in the grave, brought back to life. Eventually will come to save his people. You have all of this sort of sitting here. Yet still at no point is anybody asking the question, hey God, where is this Messiah you promised us? Where is this one you promised that would take care of Satan? So we continue to get into Joseph's story. We have Judah. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Joseph winds up in jail again. Joseph's travels are not simple. He could have given up at any point, but for whatever reason, whatever his deficiencies in character were that caused, or maybe they weren't deficiencies in character. Maybe that's a poor way of looking at it. You know, to be naive enough to look at your brothers and say, I'm going to be the guy in charge and you're all going to listen to me, especially in such a honor-bound society where the oldest
Be an antagonist.
could be an antagonist, but I also wonder if it's just not a naive sincerity. And perhaps that's also what gets him through.
Which you tend to believe after what happens later.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe
He's
it's
a pretty good guy.
Yeah. I mean, because the temptation from Potiphar's wife. He's like, no,
Shows
we're
his
not.
love for his father and his
Yep,
brothers.
we're not doing this. Joseph interprets the two prisoners' dreams. Regrettably, he had to give bad news to one of them because they were having their dreams, and he says, well, one of you is going to be released and restored to the position. The other one of you is a dead man. And, of course, that comes true. It's told that he then interprets Pharaoh's dreams, and the interpretation he's giving is that famine is coming, and we have to prepare for it. And by whatever means God had softened Pharaoh's heart to actually listen. Interesting here, this Pharaoh, his heart is softened to listen and accept.
And his son.
The later Pharaoh is going to be hardened
Right.
because of this. But he interprets the dreams for Pharaoh. It's like a resurrection to life. He comes to power. He's put in a place where he is able to help them prepare for these 7 years of famine. His brothers living in the promised land. I mean, it's not Israel. It's kind of still Canaan, possibly still, sort of. Famine is there. And the only place that food is available, once again, is Egypt. And we talked about why Egypt, last week we kind of talked about why they've got the land, the Nile floods every year, it makes it very fertile. And Egypt is always looked at as a source of safety and security and a place to go, even throughout the scriptures when God is like, do not put your trust in Egypt, and keeps telling them that. Yet they still like to do that. They still look back to Egypt because Egypt has been blessed with a lot of good things. The brothers, we all know this story. The brothers come. They don't recognize him because he no longer looks like an Israelite. I mean, you kind of go stereotypical. He looks like an Egyptian, which...
Royal.
Yeah, a royal Egyptian, somebody in power, which means he's wearing a suit, big tie. But, all the stereotypical, possibly shaved head, possibly the makeup and things that make him look royal and official. He's got power. They ask to buy food. He offers them the purchase of the food, sends them back, puts the money back in the bag so he has an excuse to hold the youngest brother, sends them back. Without the brother, they now have to tell their father. Not good with everything that Israel has
Tell
been
me
through.
that's not a get even.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, there might be a little something there. And maybe God is working on his heart too to be like, okay, you've had your fun. Now let's go. But the fact that when they all came before Joseph once again, that he was able to forgive. There's a story there too. I mean, it's forgiveness. Justice could have come. He could have killed one and all, some. He would have been justified in punishing them. And instead, they bring their father back. Benjamin's okay. he's sort of having fun, like, you don't know who I am, you don't know who I am. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's me, the one you thought you killed. And the only thing I can possibly imagine, my father had a favorite word that I think he liked to use during paratrooper training when he would jump out of airplanes into forests. He often said, you know, sometimes some things just have a very high pucker factor. And I have to imagine that's what the brothers had when they realized who that was standing in front of them. Like suddenly you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm doomed.
Yeah. It through this supposed death, and here's another like, it's not the promise, but it's the echo, it's the type of Messiah. Through the death of this son, salvation comes for this line. Through Joseph's supposed death, they're able to come to Egypt. He reconciles. He says, don't stay there. Come here. Well, remember, God promised them this land, and boy, we're all over the promised land, and we're going to have the promised land. It's all our... Okay, but he promised you a Messiah. He promised you one
Not
who is...
only that, it doesn't come through the death, it comes through the resurrection.
The resurrection. Yeah, the refoundedness of the one that you were looking for. So Jacob, Joseph reunited. The family comes. They settle in Egypt. Joseph takes care of them. And then we get into the blessings. Jacob, Israel, comes to bless his sons. And this is in chapter 49. And this is where the echo of the Messiah comes again. You know, once again, we've kind of forgotten it. But he blesses his sons. And, you know, I told you about Reuben, where that one little sentence about Reuben pops in, and you would expect the blessings to be pretty strong here. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the first fruits of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. And you're thinking, yeah, all right, Reuben. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Wah, wah, wah.
Seems like he upset his dad a little.
I think he upset his dad a little bit.
So too.
I mean, it's funny that it's not funny. Well, it is funny, but you know, here it is. It's like
human.
yeah. It's like, you are my firstborn. You are the son. You are strong. You are the. Yeah, you're not getting it. So sorry. But then we get through, and he goes through Simeon and Levi. Who were Simeon and Levi?
Levi started the jeans.
Yeah, I started the Jean Company, of course. Simeon and Levi, the two brothers who avenged their sister's rape.
Okay.
And it talks all about their violence and why they will not be the ones to carry forward anything. Then we get to Judah. Judah, starting with verse 8. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. Interesting. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He has washed his garments in wine, and his vesture in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Then we go on, and we have the other sons. They receive a blessing, but nothing nearly as prominent as what Judah receives, the tribe of Judah.
Didn't the priest and all the priests come from the
Tribe of Levi.
tribe of Levi?
Mm-hmm. But they're not going to rule. They're going to serve.
Pretty important position.
Interesting also that within the tribe of Levi, I mean, we always think of them as priests, but not every Levite operated as a priest.
But they served the temple.
They served the temple in some way, which included temple guards and fighters. And, you know, I mean, they served the temple.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, but not every Levite served at the temple. They would rotate, and they would, you know, be in for a time and be out for a time. And but yeah, because of their violent solution to their problem, because of their inability to trust in God to take care of the situation, they are not prominent. But Judah's the one who's going to carry it. Now, what do we see here? What is being promised in here? Well, to begin with, you have this: Judah is a lion's cub. You've heard the phrase Lion of Judah. It's a way of describing Jesus. So, Revelation 5:5. It's so nice to actually flip paper. I'm so used to looking all this stuff up on my phone. I like to do this. And one of the elders said to me, this is John speaking, and he had the heavenly vision: "Weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." The Lion of Judah. Hosea 11.
Is that what you were reading?
That was Revelation 5. Hosea 11:10. So of the prophets. They shall go after the Lord. He will roar like a lion. When he roars, his children shall come trembling from the west. So this idea that, you know, it's a roar, it's a powerful. What do you get out of this? It's this idea that he will be fierce, a warrior, protective. He is the strongest one that is there. That is the image that's given with the lion. Most powerfully given within modern literature, you think of C.S. Lewis and what he wrote with the Narnia series. And Jesus is represented by a lion, the savior figure within the story. So he picked up on it. You know, there's always this image. Lion, powerful, strong. He's going to be their ruler. It says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet." He will be the ruler. He's going to be eternal. That's going to be there forever. Well, nobody else fits the qualification. David was ruler for a time. Other kings came and went. Jesus, eternal. Everyone will be obedient to him. Kind of when you get into these weird pictures, starting with verse 11, binding his foal to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. Talking about that, they were saying some of that is this idea of the Gentiles coming, and they're attaching themselves to the vine. These are ideas of parties and celebrations, and they're coming, and Jesus identifies himself as the vine. I am the vine, you are the branches. That kind of idea. So with that, we really wind up at the end. I mean, that's 49. Those are the blessings. Then Jacob, Israel dies. I thought this was incredibly fascinating. It says, "And Joseph fell on his father's face, wept over him, kissed him. Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it, for that is how many are required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. So they went through the process of embalming him, going through what, you know, every museum we go into where you see the mummies and the tomb, that's what they did. And then it says Joseph asked the Pharaoh for permission to go and bury his father, buried him in his land.
Someday they might dig up Israel.
Kind of makes you wonder. Kind of makes you wonder what's out there. I mean, you don't know, but then I thought what was really funny is it says after he died, it says that his brothers got a little nervous.
Thinking that the only reason they were
Yeah.
being protected was
Now,
because of the father.
now that our father is dead, are you going to kill us? And it says, no. You've been forgiven. He who the Lord has forgiven is forgiven indeed. There's your echo of the Messiah right there. It's not, and once again, these are all types and shadows. These are not promises, but they say this is what you're looking for in your Messiah. And then it tells us Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's house. Joseph lived 110 years, saw Ephraim's children in the third generation. Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Wow.
It seems odd that they stayed there even after the famine was over.
Well, their whole family was there, though, at that point, right?
I mean, yeah, maybe. They settled, and they obviously had a good working relationship at that point. Things were good.
How long they were there?
Off the top of my head, no.
7
We'd
years,
have to.
maybe, while the famine was going
I mean, certainly they were there while the famine was going on, but I mean, what we're told is that they were there increasing in Egypt, and they were becoming a powerful people, and yet
To the point where Pharaoh was getting worried.
the new Pharaoh was not happy.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. I'll take a look. I'll see if we can put some time around that somehow. But that is the story in Genesis. That brings us up to Exodus, and we will start Exodus. We may not go quite as minutely through the story of Exodus because a lot of Exodus, Leviticus especially, is the formation of this nation and of this people. Not so many promises are made in there. More traditions and more, these are the kind of holy people you're going to be. Which they are holy, and they're indications. I mean, when you see the law of God that comes out there and says, this is what you shall do, this is what you shall do, you certainly have to think about Jesus. If you're not thinking about how Jesus fulfills those things, then you're just missing the point. But I don't know that we're going to take time to go through all of that. We'll go through and we'll hit some of the high points. I had attached a few things from early church fathers. I mean, these definitely, the passages I pointed out to you are messianic passages, always have been. I'll just pull this out from Luther, the last one that I have on here. He says, this is a glorious promise, talking about Judah and the promise that's made at the end. For he has nothing bad to say about Judah, but only the best and most splendid things, even though this tribe also had very wicked kings. So, getting down the road. Therefore, just as he keeps silence here about every curse, so he made no mention at all above of the blessing, and only set forth nature as an example, just as he praises grace in this passage. For in that tribe were the godless kings, Jeroboam, Ahaz, Shalom, Manasseh, etc. Yet here nothing but good is spoken of Judah. But the reason for and the origin of this exceedingly rich blessing is that one flower which was to come into the world from the people of God, namely Christ Jesus, for whose sake all good things had to be said, not to nature, but to grace. And it is special wisdom or revelation that he makes such a clear distinction in this tribe concerning this seed. For For this light, not only rational or political prudence and knowledge, but a special spirit was required in the shepherd, whose office was not political, but concerned his flock and his church, to which he predicts such great and such certain things. So what he's really saying is, Judah gets this just effervescent blessing, how great you are and how wonderful it. And we all know the line of Judah was not super great. It had its moments, but as he points out, these kings, they had some evil kings before all is said and done. But Luther's point there is that because this blessing is not pointing to those people, this blessing is pointing to the one who is to come, the one who is going to go to the cross. And when you read that, and this is where I as I said, we might get a little, not confused, but if we're looking at the promise of the promised land and we're not looking at it from a messianic point of view, then we're going to get very invested in the land and not in the Messiah, which is kind of what happens.
Right.
So, that gets us to the end of Genesis. Any questions? Any thoughts? Everybody's still absorbing. All right, very good. Let's close with a word of prayer, and we will call it for a Thursday. Father, thank you. Thank you for the Messiah you have given to us. Thank you for the salvation that we know and the fact that it comes from your grace and not from what we may think we deserve, and we certainly do not deserve. Bless us as we prepare ourselves to come this Sunday. Bless us as we prepare our hearts to receive your word, to receive your forgiveness, to receive your grace. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Let me go shut it off.
So I won't be here for the next probably